Few films embody the eccentric charm of the 1980s fantasy cinema quite like Sword of the Valiant. Released in 1984, directed by Stephen Weeks and starring Miles O'Keeffe and the late, great Sean Connery, the movie attempts a bold retelling of the medieval poem Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, a cornerstone of Arthurian literature. The result is a film that is visually striking, narratively idiosyncratic, and historically fascinating, even if critically divisive. So, the film was produced by the Canon Group. Movies from the 80s, that name was slapped on a lot of kind of B-level action movies. The legendary studio was known for ambitious, low-budget genre films. As I said, director Stephen Weeks, who had previously adapted the same poem in 1973, Sword of the Valiant, this represents his second attempt to bring the Gawain legend to the screen. And the cast is surprisingly prestigious for a Canon production. You had Sean Connery as the Green Knight, Miles O'Keeffe as Sir Gawain, Trevor Howard, Peter Cushing, Cyril Clare in supporting roles. The film runs 102 minutes and was shot primarily in the United Kingdom. Now, Canon's involvement is key to understanding the film's tone. The studio often paired grand mythic ambition with limited budgets, resulting in films that feel simultaneously epic and handmade. Sword of the Valiant fits this mold perfectly. The film is loosely based on the 14th century poem, as mentioned before, of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, though it diverges significantly from the original narrative. Now, the Green Knight's challenge, the crux of the film. At King Arthur's court, the mysterious Green Knight, Sean Connery, arrives and issues a challenge. Gawain accepts, beheads him, and is then told he has 1 year to solve a riddle or face death. This differs from the poem where Gawain must submit to a return blow. Now, the quest structure, the film sort of transforms the poem's moral and psychological journey into a more kind of episodic adventure-driven quest. You really do go from encounter to encounter. Like we meet Cyril Clare, a mysterious maiden, a tyrannical lord, a magical forest, temptations and illusions. It's a series of trials and testing his courage and virtue. Now, the narrative is more romantic and swashbuckling than a poem, reflecting a lot of trends in 80s fantasy. I mean, there were movies, a lot of these movies, 80s fantasy films, weren't made for kids or even teenagers. They were adult films. You saw, not in this one in particular, but in a lot of these kind of sword and sandal, swashbuckling fantasy movies, there was a lot of skin. I'll put it to you that way. Despite its modest budget, it really does. Sword of the Valiant is visually memorable. The film leans heavily into lush green landscapes and medieval castles and ruins, mist-shrouded forest, ornate costumes, especially Sean Connery's shimmering emerald armor. And there's like one moment where Gawain is blowing this horn and this rainbow appears over the seascape, and it's really cool. Sean Connery's Green Knight is particularly striking. He's very regal, otherworldly, looks like the king of the forest, very theatrical. His presence elevates the film's mythic tone, even when the script falters a bit. The cinematography by Peter Hurst and Freddie Young, the latter, who is famous for Lawrence of Arabia, gives the film a painterly quality. It really does. Even critics who just like the narrative often praised how beautiful the film was. Sean Connery, he delivers a performance that is both commanding and playful. He's very much chewing scenery in this one. His Green Knight is less a monstrous figure and more a cosmic judge. He's enigmatic. He's imposing, but also amused. It's almost like Loki is the Green Knight. His charisma anchors the bookends of the film. Miles O'Keefe, known for his role mainly in Tarzan, the Ape Man, and the Ator films, he brings physicality and earnestness to Gawain. While not universally praised, his performance fits the film's fairy tale tone, beyond the shadow of a doubt. And the supporting cast, like I said, veteran actors like Trevor Howard and the amazing Peter Cushing, Lynn Gravitas, while Sorrel Claire adds really a romantic mystique. She's absolutely lovely. Their presence gives the film a sense of legitimacy that contrasts with its sort of pulpier, low-budget elements. The original poem itself is a masterpiece of medieval literature, rich in symbolism, Christian morality, and psychological nuance. Sword of the Valiant takes a more straightforward adventure approach. The poem itself, its central theme, Gawain's internal struggle with honor, is a bit softened a bit. He's kind of honorable throughout the film. The riddle replaces the return blow as the central challenge. The Lady Bertilac, the seduction sequence, is reimagined as a more romantic subplot. And the film emphasizes sort of action and spectacle over the sort of philosophical and moral ambiguity. These changes reflect Canon's desire to create a marketable fantasy film rather than a faithful literary adaptation, sticking it out there with like I think it was a 1982 maybe, Clash of the Titans with Harry Hamlin. Upon its release, the film received, like I said before, mixed to negative reviews. Critics cited its disjointed narrative, uneven pacing, simplification of the epic poem's themes. I think even on IMDb it doesn't rate higher than a 5. However, the reason I'm talking about it, I absolutely adored the film. I adore it to this day. As one, I love sword and sorcery cinema from the 80s. Absolutely love it. I am a huge fan of the Arthurian legend and most of its adaptations. Of course, Sean Connery's in it, so you're at least going to watch it once to see how good it is. Even when a lot of things falter, Sean Connery is always amazing. And of course, Canon Films' unique brand of kind of earnest, ambitious fantasy. Its flaws, to be honest, are part of its charm. It's an artifact of a bygone era when studios took wild swings at mythic storytelling. It's less high top B movie. To me, it's more kind of a low grade A movie. While not a critical success, Sword of the Valiant occupies a fascinating place in Arthurian film history. The reason it endures is it is one of the few cinematic adaptations of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight up until the recent The Green Knight film that came out. Connery, his Green Knight, remains iconic in fantasy cinema. And the film, again, like I said before, it captures that 80s fantasy aesthetic. The theatrical, lush, slightly surreal, but again, missing what was the norm then, a lot of skin and scantily clad ladies. It represents Canon Films. It's really their most ambitious, blending prestige casting with genre filmmaking. It really was them swinging for the fences. In retrospect, the film feels like a bridge between the mythic earnestness of the 70s, 70s fantasy, and the darker, more psychological interpretations that would emerge not just during the 80s, but kind of decades on. So like I said, Sword of the Valiant, it's not a perfect film. It's far from it. But it is a memorable one and definitely one of my favorites. Its blend of, as I stated before, the lush visuals, Arthurian legend, of course, Sean Connery, its production style from Canon. It just creates this kind of cinematic experience that is equal parts mythic and campy, but very much so heartfelt. If you're a fan of fantasy cinema, it remains a compelling curiosity if you've never seen it. It's a film that dares greatly, stumbles often, but leaves an impression that lingers like a half-remembered dream of knights and riddles and magic that's emerald green. Thanks for joining me for this movie review of one of my favorite films as a youngster, Sword of the Valiant. See you in the next video.